All right, we're live. Good deal. It's nice to have an IT person in the back, Yeah.
What is up, everybody? Monday Night Live.
Here we go. We got Dave Mansue on here. We were just chatting about Table Rock Lake, and it's fishing pretty good. So I was going to ask you, kind of pivot on what we were talking about. Do you think you kind of mentioned that the cold winter affected, the fish being in the hardcore summer pattern? Did you touch a little bit on that? And then did you guys have a really big shad kill down there too?
Amazingly, there was quite a bit of the lake covered in ice. And typically when you get that and it starts to melt off, the water temp really drops a bunch and you get a major shad kill off. But we didn't have that this year. I don't know. We must have some hardy shad here because they didn't. There was no shad kill whatsoever. In fact, right now, I mean, there's shad everywhere in the lake. You can't go anywhere without finding bait right now. So really, the cold water didn't affect the shad at all. I think what it did was we had cold and high water, and it really kept the fish up close to the bank most of the year. We're still 1.5 feet above full pool right now. So they just never actually migrated it, because the water didn't drop down below full pool. They never really migrated out to those deeper edges where they would typically get. And the water temperature had something to do with it as well. I mean, we're only 84 degrees, surface temperature. So it's kind of an off year, and you've got to make that adjustment. They've never really been where they are typically, so you've got to make that adjustment to locate them right now.
What's the main species of shad down there?
Well, you got me.
Okay.
Shad.
I know the gizzards are a little bit.
I believe they are.
Gizzards are a little bit hardier than threadfin. So
yeah. I know there are a lot of threadfin in here. There's a lot of big gizzard shad, and typically when you can find those big gizzard shad, you'll find the larger largemouths on them. But there's also an amazing bluegill population here.
Right.
Bluegill imitations, whether it's a jig, a crankbait, or whatever, have been doing phenomenal all year long here.
We got a bunch of our favorite guests in here. I just want to give a shout out to everybody. What's up, Cody, Jeremiah, Darius, Tom? Got Phil in here. Yeah, Phil, I did have to take a shower. It was hot out there for the mailman. It was a tough day. I was telling telling Dave a while ago that we went up to a show up in St. Louis, and it's the first time I'd been up there in forever. Took the kids up there, and we didn't get home till about midnight. I got to bed about 1, and of course I had to be at work at 7, walking around this heat all day. It was run all day long. Colby Baker's in here. We got Hellabass. What's up, Rich? Good to see you here. So we were going to fish that BFL this year at Table Rock, and it got postponed because the lake was frozen, and
right.
That was crazy. I just couldn't believe that it had froze up like that. Of course, the next month we were supposed to fish one at Lake of the Ozarks, and it was froze up. But they that was a Toyota series. We thought that was going to be canceled, and we ended up having it. But you had to break ice in the morning, and there was a couple spots. Actually, most of the lake, until about middle of the day, you couldn't get in the backs of any coves. So you could see where all that juicy stuff that you wanted to fish in the back of the cove, but you couldn't get back there. It was a strange tournament. So
yeah, there was a good many days like that here at Table Rock as well.
Let's see here and check these comments, guys. If you got any questions here, get them on here. We'll certainly discuss whatever you guys want to talk about. So that deep pattern, typically this time of year, you're going to be out there, I guess around the thermocline. Is there a thermocline? I mean, typically set up on Table Rock? Yeah,
typically there is. It's not everywhere, but when you get over the deeper water, it's pretty easy to find. But typically in the summertime here, we're catching them in 40, 50 feet of water. Now I mentioned to you today, you know, the shad are actually moving up through the main river right now. You'll see big balls of them, and every now and then you'll see the bass come up and break on them. And I actually caught them on a top water today, over 50 feet of water, which was a lot of fun, you know. And I'm not, you know, for those of us who have the live scope, or, you know, whichever brand you might want to use, it's pretty neat to get out there over that deep water and see them there, and then watch them react to the shad and come up. And you can pretty much make a cast now to where they're going to come up. You know, you don't have to wait for them and get a bite on them. So it's a lot of fun.
How far do you see them come up for topwater bait?
Well, you mean from a depth?
Yeah. How, you know, at what depth will they come up from?
You can see right now, like today, most of them that would bite would come up and eat the top water. We're anywhere from about 5 to 8 feet down.
Okay.
And you can see them come up for it. I did earlier this year when the wake bait bite was on. I did catch 2 really big, you know, 4-pound smallmouths on a wake bait, where I actually saw them come up from 20 feet. And it's nerve-wracking. Because you're reeling, you know, and then you see them coming, and it's like they disappear, because you can see the wake bait, you can see your top water on the live scope, but you know it's going to happen because they're coming like a freight train, you know. And suddenly they disappear and nothing's happened yet, and you're like, what the? And then all of a sudden, man, it's awesome. It's absolutely
that's cool.
Yeah, it's so much fun. But that, you know, it's kind of, that thing opens up a whole new world for you. You know,
Sure.
I know Lowrance has their own model now, and Humminbird has their own model now. I've been with Garmin for a few years now and have used it, and really fallen in love with it. It's a game changer. You know.
Yeah, that topic has come up a lot on this live stream, and me and Jonathan, we fish out of 16-foot aluminum boats, and that's going to be our next purchase, is some sort of forward-facing sonar, because there's so many times where I wish I had it. You know, just was it Sunday? I was fishing a local lake, and you were talking about the schooling bass busting on topwater. I was throwing a Super Spook Junior, and I mean, I like to throw that. I like to throw the Sexy Dog, one of those 2 baits, and those fish come up for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and then it's over. And then you're like, which way did they go? Did they just go straight down? Did they go to the right? Did they go to the left? Or they, you know, you can see them when they swim under the boat, obviously, with your down scan. And I don't have side scan hooked up on my front graph. So every once in a while, I'll walk back to the back graph and look just to see if I can find them. But man, if you had forward facing sonar, you could, you know, throw an underspin or, you know, a hair jig or something and kind of halfway stay on them. But it seems like if you don't have that technology, you're just waiting for them to come up again. And then you could also get it back in better position too, you know, because a lot of times they're 50 yards away, you know, they're just like 20 yards too far for your cast. But if you could stay kind of behind them and just wait for them to come up, that would be such an advantage. So it's
one thing you learn about it is, well, there's several things that I try to share with people. Is number one, you really don't realize how fast they move. I mean, they are moving. They're, you know, like you said, they come up over here and they're gone, and you'll be on them with the forward facing sonar, and all of a sudden they'll disappear, and you're scanning around, and all of a sudden here they are, you know, 50, 100 feet away from where you just saw them. You know, so staying on them is much easier with the forward-facing sonar, but you realize just how much they do move, you know. And then the most important thing that I try to share with people is, to me, it's like bed fishing. You're gonna realize that you cannot make every fish bite. You're gonna see them, and they're gonna react to your bait, but they're not gonna bite it. And really, you need to get away from those fish. You need to go find fish that are gonna bite the bait, because you can spend a lot of time, just as you would on a bed fish, trying to make those fish bite, and they won't. I've seen them come out and swarm baits, whether it be jerk baits, crank baits, A-rigs, everything. And they'll swarm it like hornets. and never touch it. And then you throw something else out there and they'll swarm that and never touch it and go right back to the cover they came up off of, and you won't catch a one. So you really need to learn to be able to identify that fish that's not going to bite as opposed to the one that is going to bite.
Yeah, that's like you said, that saves a lot of time. I think it'd be hard. I mean, there's got to be a learning curve on when to leave, though. I mean, I'm sure you got a few baits you rotate through, and if they're not going to bite, you kind of know it's time to find different fish.
Exactly. You get a certain rotation, and if you don't catch one on them, man, it's time to move. Let's go find some more. Because you, like I said, you can waste a whole lot of time trying to make a fish bite. That's not going. It's amazing how many you see, especially now. In some of the typical community spots, you'll see them, and they'll watch the bait go down. They'll follow it down, and they'll just look at it. They won't bite it, or they'll move away from it. Those are fish that have been caught. They're not falling for that game again. You're not going to fool me again. I'm not touching that thing.
Right.
But it's pretty neat to experience all of that.
Have you had any experience targeting individual fish when you see one out, say 80, 100 foot in front of you, and just going after that one single fish?
I have. I don't like to, but I have. And sometimes you can make them bite. Typically, when you get 2 or 3 together, the competition overwhelms one of them. They don't want their buddy to get it, so they'll bite it. When you have one, sometimes they're tough. Now, if you have one that's on a piece of cover, like on a tree or a brush pile, something like that, a lot of times you can make that fish bite. But when that single fish is sitting there all by himself, suspended somewhere, that's a tough one. That's a real tough one.
Why didn't you had mentioned it's very similar to bed fishing. If you just tick that fish off enough or irritate him enough to bite. I know I've heard a lot of the crappie guys doing that, chasing, that one big 3-4 pound crappie around for hours, similar to what a bass guy would do with a big, large female on the bed.
Just keep pestering her.
Keep pestering her enough to get her to react. So,
well, Jonathan, the funny thing about this forward-facing radar sonar is, some fish look big, some fish don't look big. Some fish are big, some fish aren't. So if you get that single one out there, until you actually hook him, you don't really know just how big he is.
Right.
And it's a time factor. How much time do I want to waste? If I can't make this fish bite, you'll make a few passes at him, but if he doesn't react to it, it's hard to harass somebody that's just suspended, in 20, 25 feet of water with nothing around them, So, in that respect of bed fishing, it's a little bit different because they're locked down to one spot and you can just keep harassing them till they bite,
Right.
When they're out there in the middle of nowhere, it's hard to harass them.
I'm kind of wondering when those fish come up and they're schooling and then you see, 5 minutes later, you see some fish come up in a different area. I'm curious if that's that same school that's moved or if there's multiple schools in the area. I think that would be really cool to figure that out with a live scope set up.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it is, a lot of times it isn't. There's just a lot of fish in the area and they're coming up at different times, but you can actually watch a bait ball come by and then you'll see them come in and attack it. They'll just split that bait up and then force it to the top and start going crazy on it. In the wintertime here, we'll do the same thing, only it's in real deep water. It's in, anywhere from this past winter, we were catching them in 70 feet. You'd see the bait ball. You could see the bait ball, and then you would see the fish underneath the bait ball, and then you'd see them actually just split the bait ball, split it right in half. They're actively feeding on that bait ball, and you're able to, with a drop shot or a swim bait or a spoon or something, get them to bite on that. But it's a whole different ball game when it's that deep.
Do you guys still throw the redfin at all?
Yeah, a lot of guys here still throw that redfin.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember it was some of the first times I ever fished Table Rock. This is like 20 years ago. Guys were telling me, man, you got to buy a redfin. I went to the bait shop and bought one, and the guy took it out of the package, and he took some pliers and he bent the line tie down towards the bill so it would wake more.
Right.
And we caught some fish on it. Just like you said, throwing out in 60, 70 foot of water, the treetops, and just waking it over the tops of those trees. It's pretty crazy, man. You're like,
yeah.
I'm not in 60 foot of water. I'm not going to catch anything. But they're down there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. They get suspended on those trees, especially the cedar trees, and they could be 20 feet down and they'll still come up and eat it. It's a lot of fun.
You'd mentioned how fast those fish are. And then you mentioned the wintertime fishing. Are fish as lethargic and slow as we believe they are in the dead of winter? I didn't think so.
Really?
No, they are not.
Just as fast in December as they are in July, huh?
So there's a thing that always troubled me. So I fished a lot of grass back east and a lot of grass in Texas when I lived in Texas. And, the whole, we're all taught that in the wintertime, they move real slow. You got to slow down. But then we pick up a rattle trap, throw it out there and reel it in as fast as we can. And, next thing you know, the thing stops, the gears are grinding because one's got it. How does that work? They're supposed to be lethargic, right? He caught that rattle trap. He must be moving pretty good. Well, with that forward-facing sonar, you quickly realize they're not so slow in that cold water. When they want to get something, they'll get it. Trust me.
Well, you're throwing that jerkbait in the dead of winter and one knocks 6 foot of slack in your line between jerks. It's like they can't be moving that slow.
Yeah. No, they, if they're hungry and they want it, they'll get it. Trust me.
Right.
But that whole theory of them not moving around too much or being real slow, that's a wives' tale.
It's a wives' tale.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Guys on here, we are going to do a giveaway a little bit later. Same thing as we've been doing. So keep your ears peeled for that secret statement that's going to happen here before too long. Brock's got a Asian carp question. He says, I heard they're having some success finding some ways to catch Asian carp eggs before they become fry. Can you speak to any of that news? Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't. I have heard that there's been some breakthroughs on trying to control those Asian carp. And I've been on Kentucky Lake and I've been on the Ohio River where they're absolutely horrible. So I'm hopeful that, perhaps this is one of the things that's being done to control them. They got to do something with them. It's just terrible what's happening to those waterways with those Asian carp in them.
It is. It really changed. We fished Kentucky. That's where we got into our BFL endeavors. And from the first year until the last year that we fished them, it was night and day difference. I mean, those Asian carp they've ruined it, honestly. I mean, where you the last tournament that I remember, we were fishing a ledge. I had looked out in front of me. I saw one giant fish swimming. I'm like, what in the world? And then all of a sudden I seen 50 or 60 behind it, and they were 20 to 40 pound Asian carp. It wasn't the little bitty,
Yeah.
They were giant fish. So it's out of hand.
Have you ever had one of them things land on your deck of your boat?
I've had them hit me upside the head.
Have you really?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've had it inside the boat. It's just, man, it's not fun.
No, it's not.
Yeah. But they've done some tremendous damage to those waterways, and I feel for you guys. Believe me, I hope they're able to come up with some methods to contain them. But we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, Brock, he's down at Table Rock, but I will if you want an answer to that, I can reach out to a couple people that live down there in Kentucky Lake that are kind of on the know of that stuff. So if you hit me up on Instagram at 10horsemonty6, I will make a few phone calls and find out. I haven't heard of that, but I certainly hope that they are doing something. I know they put those sound barrier gates that have helped a little bit, and then the commercial fishing has put a pretty good dent in the Asian carp population, and it's starting to come back. The numbers of like 15 to 16-inch bass are finally starting to. You're seeing a lot more limits weighed in on the tournaments. I mean, it might be a 12 to 13 pound limit, but there was a couple years ago where a lot of guys would just weigh in 2 fish or 3 fish. There weren't enough filler fish to go around. You'd either catch like a 5 to 8 pounder, or you wouldn't catch anything. But there's starting to be some small keeper fish to go in the bags, and it's shad population is starting to slowly come back. And I've heard that there's a little bit of grass trickling in, and that to me, that's the biggest key. If the grass will start growing back in Kentucky Lake, it'll give that forage place to hide and get away from the predators, and the bass fry and the crappie fry and stuff. It'll help their survival rate. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm hopeful that the grass will come back to Kentucky Lake, and it'll make it the fishery that it once was.
That can only help things, for sure.
Let me check these comments here and see if we have any more questions for you. Phil's got high expectations. He says he fishes a private development lake that is clear and has deep timber. He can't wait to try his live target to see how many of these fish are suspended in these treetops. So when somebody buys, like a Garmin unit, are there any kind of like key things that they need to look for setting it up? Is there certain settings that they maybe need to pay attention to, or is it just pretty much plug and play?
No, it's not. It can be plug and play, but the more you play with it, you constantly have to adjust the depth range and then the gain on it. And I try not to get mine out beyond 70 feet. Maintains a much clearer picture within that range. And typically, the deeper the water, the higher the gain on it. It creates much more clarity. And then if you're in the shallow water, you really have to adjust the depth. Anything, 20 feet, 10 feet, there's a new mount that you can turn the unit so it's sideways and is casting out more of a horizontal beam. But if you know how to use it, you really don't need that. You can actually adjust the depth and scan around and see things in as shallow as 5 feet with it. So the more you use it and the more you adjust the gain is actually what creates the clarity in it. And the more you play with that so that you understand what you're seeing, the better you'll be. It's like I always told people, with side imaging, you should always go buy something that whether it be a bridge abutment, a dock, something like that, so you understand what it looks like on the screen when you go buy it. We all have a perception of what it's supposed to look like, but this is an electronic device that may view it differently than we do. So understanding exactly how it's going to look on that device is crucial in being able to identify things when you're out and they surprise you, So you want to do the same thing with the live scope, or any of those units. Is go buy something that and play with, kind of sit in one spot and play with it, so that you understand, where you need to be on the screen, what the adjustments need to be on the screen, so that it's clear to you. And everybody's palette is different too. Like I use a black emerald palette on mine, but some other people may use an amber palette. Everybody's eyes look at things differently. So it really has to be adjusted to you.
Here's another forward-facing sonar question. Josh says, what's your secret on getting the damn ghost tree off? So apparently I've heard there's like a shadow that you get on the live scope, or.
Yeah. Sometimes you can adjust the transducer. You can turn the transducer a little bit, or you can actually get it up higher on the trolling motor shaft, so that it's actually viewing a little. The viewing window goes a little past the side of the trolling motor, the actual motor head itself. So you can play with those adjustments and get maybe get away from it completely or minimize it a little bit. And then also that gain again, the higher you go with the gain, the more that tree shows up, so you want to drop it down a little bit. You can still see things coming through it if you have it adjusted right. So again, that you've got to play with it so that you understand what you're seeing.
See, Darius says they've taken 10 million pounds of Asian carp out at Kentucky Lake. So that's excellent news.
You only got 100 million more.
Yeah. Andy said he doesn't catch much, but he still likes to go fishing. So that's part of it. That's why they call it fishing, not catching.
Yeah.
Talk about your setup a little bit on your Garmin unit. What unit do you have? And how you have all that rigged up for your boat?
So I have 3 units on my boat. At the console, I have 210 Echo Map Ultra 10s. They're 10-inch screens. On the left one, I'll have the 2D and the mapping. And on the right one, primarily I have the side scan and the clear view, which is the down scan. And that way I've got 3 different pictures of what I'm going over, so I can compare everything. On the front unit, I have a 12-inch unit. And I have on the Garmin's, you can adjust the windows sizes. So on the bottom, I have mapping and 2D, and it's a very small window on both. I don't need a big window for them. But on that screen is 12 inches high. I have 10 inches of the live scope.
Okay.
So
that's nice.
I have it all in one unit right there. And I like that setup. So I'm not looking, a lot of guys have 2 units up there, one dedicated to live scope and the other dedicated to, whatever. But you're constantly going back and forth. With this, I'm looking at one unit, and with the 12-inch, I get a very broad view of everything. And it's a personal preference, it's like Fords and Chevys, Bass Cats and Phoenixes, but that works for me.
I know when I run 2 graphs on the front of my boat, and when I put 2 up there, it was a huge adjustment to not be looking at one screen. And it took me a long time because I use one for sonar and one for mapping.
Right.
And I was telling my dad this weekend, I said, I'd be lost without my maps anymore.
Yeah.
Maps are almost more important to me than sonar.
Right.
Because I know where my lineup is at on the map.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to know what's underneath my boat because I'm not casting underneath the boat. I'm casting 100 foot that way. So
exactly.
But that's interesting to have just one dedicated unit up there. I was wondering if you had a 12-inch graph, if it was enough screen to house live scope and then your 2D and your mapping.
It is for me. And then, there are certain situations where I can punch another preset, or on the Garmin's, all you do is whatever window you want to go to. If you touch that one, it does the whole screen. So,
okay.
So if I want to go full live scope, all I do is touch that screen, and the other 2 are they go away, and it's the whole screen is just live scope.
Awesome.
So if I'm fishing a brush pile or a row of trees or something like that, and I know where they're at, and I need that bigger window, I can quickly do it just by touching the screen. But I'm like you, that mapping, a lot of times you find yourself sticking to a certain contour, and depths, where the fish are located, and that mapping is really important to me.
Here's another question. I was kind of actually going to touch on this before Phil asked this question, but have you noticed, what kind of power draw have you noticed with the live scope? Did you have to get an additional battery, or what's your setup on that?
I've been running Optima batteries for 12 years now. Yes, they're a sponsor of mine, but I've been running them for 12 years now, and I run their it's the Blue Tops. It's the 31 series. It's the largest one they make, and I've never had a problem with power. Never. I'm I'm running 3 units, and typically what I do is on the console, when I get up to go fish a spot, I'll put them in standby. Okay, that does 2 things. Obviously, it's less power draw, but more importantly, it's less interference to the units in the front. So you get a much clearer picture.
Right. Have you changed your wiring up when you rig those units up on your boat, or you use factory wiring?
Factory wiring. Yeah, I've never had a problem with it. I know guys who are running 16-inch screens, and they don't have a problem either.
Right.
Really important though. You'll see a lot of guys, and boy, it drives me crazy sometimes. The more noise you make on a spot, on a location, the less likely especially today, the less likely you are to get a bite. And that noise is also made by all those units, how many times have you seen where you idle over a spot and you look and they're there, and you come around and you try and you go to look at them again and they're gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Because of all that pinging, so the more noise you make on a location, the less likely you are to get a bite. So if you have the ability to shut those back units down, to put them in standby, and they're not pinging, you've only got one ping going, with the front unit, you're in much better shape as far as catching fish go.
I mean, that's something that I do when I'm fishing shallow. Anything under 5-6 foot, I stop all of my sonar from pinging on all my crafts. That way,
exactly.
that's does it make a big difference? I think it does. I think it's more up here than anything. But if I can be as quiet and as stealthy as I can when I'm up there super, super shallow, that means more to me. And if I get 1 or 2 more bites throughout a tournament day, that's 1 or 2 bites that I didn't have because of my graphs were running. And how it took me 5 seconds to turn all my graphs off.
I think it's something I always notice is you may scan an area and it's an area, say there's a nice drop, there's some rock out there, maybe a brush pile or some wood, and it looks right, but you don't see any fish. Maybe it's a spot you've caught fish on before. So you shut your motor down, you get on the trolling motor, you kind of start casting around. And then all of a sudden, after about 10 minutes of being there, you start seeing fish on the down scan or on the 2D. That's always baffled me. Is it's like, were those fish there the whole time, just sucked really tight to the bottom and you couldn't pick them up, or are those just fish moving in the area? And just throwing that out there, I always thought that was interesting. How you scan it, and you don't see them, and then you just be quiet and chill for 10 minutes, and some fish start showing up.
Well,
even to
you'll notice on the live scope also, you can scan an area, and you might not see anything, and you throw a bait out there, and then all of a sudden here they come up off the bottom.
Okay.
Because they were so tight to the bottom that you couldn't see them. Unless they move, you don't see them. But that happens a lot, where you're looking at it, man, and that could be, and then all of a sudden, boy, here he comes up off the bottom. So, that happens a lot.
Well, the one thing that I've noticed is, and this has been years ago with the side scan, just rolling over for us, not even a shallow bar, 12, 15 foot bar, rolling over top of it and see the fish, turn around, go to fish, you don't catch them, come back an hour later, don't roll over that bar, just start fishing, and you catch them. Mm-hmm. Those fish get so used to those boats making structure scan lines across.
A lot of times I'll leave. If I scan them, I'll just leave, and then I'll come back, 30 minutes
Make a
later.
mental note and say, I'm going to come back here in a little bit.
Yep.
When I lived on Toledo Bend in Texas, the last couple years that I lived there, I mean, everybody has mapping now. Everybody's looking, trying to find that honey hole, and everybody's idling over them, and it turned out that you were much better off if you had caught fish there in the past and you wanted to catch fish there today. Don't run over it. Pull up to it and fish it, because if they were there and you rolled over them, they were gone when you came back. They keyed in on that pretty quick, so it was you were much better off just hey, I've caught them here before, or this place looks like a good location, should hold some fish, just pull up and fish it.
We've asked this question in the past. Do you think this is going to change? Live scope, forward facing sonar is going to change the way fish set up in the future? You think it'll push them shallower, push them out deeper into new haunts?
That's a good question. I don't, I don't know that it's the forward facing sonar per se. It's the fact that more fishermen are going to find the fish where they're at.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're going to move to places where you're not looking for them. They're going to move to get away from that stuff and get away from the hooks and the baits and whatnot. And you're going to have to start looking for them in areas that you've never looked for them before. I think that, they get, let's face it, there's places where, in the springtime you can catch them, but they don't go back there. There's places that typically that you used to catch fish, years ago. How many guys do you know? It's like, man, I used to catch them there years ago, but they haven't been there in a while. Well, they haven't been there in a while because they got beat up, so they'll move to places where nobody's looking for them, and they'll be fresh, when you do find them. But I think, they seem to adjust to us pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah, man. No doubt about it. There's so many spots where you've caught fish and you just don't catch them there anymore. They're not there because they've been beat up, and they're not going to go back there and just to see if anything happens. They're happy where they're at. Is
it safe now?
It's safe now. Yeah.
Well, and I think and correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of guys overutilize the live scope on certain times of the year and rely on it a little too much. I mean, there's still fish shallow everywhere you go. All year long.
Like
you're not going to see that. What's that?
I'm like you though. If I'm fishing up shallow, I typically have everything off.
Yeah, there's no reason to have it on when you're in 6 foot of water.
No, if you're just going down the bank, throwing a chatterbait, spinnerbait, anything like that, or they're bedding there, but maybe it's one of those areas that they're bedding in and you can't see them, so you're throwing, a Senko, a jig, a tube, anything like that across the bottom, a creature bait, you don't need that on. You know where they're at. You're just trying to throw, have it hit a spot where there's a bed there and they're gonna bite it, or there's a piece of cover. I see guys, I love to flip. I love flipping bushes, lay downs, all that other stuff, but when I'm doing that, I shut it off. I shut everything off. I every now and then I'll check to make sure that if it's dirty water, that I'm the right depth. It hasn't gotten too deep or hasn't gotten too shallow on me. Usually I'll know that by how the bait falls, but every now and then, you got to turn the unit on just to verify that. But other than that, I shut them off. I want to be as quiet as possible.
Darius says he has the radio on in his boat, so it masks the pinging. That's his strategy. I think on some lakes the radio's fine, like Lake of the Ozarks. They're used to so much noise and everybody's booming and blasting and carrying on and partying. I don't think those fish care.
That's probably where they suspend at, because they know there's no any fishermen there. They just suspend under the party brigade.
Does he have a preferred genre that he plays?
That's what we're working on that. We're working on that.
Yeah.
That's what Hellbass asked.
Yeah. I used to, when I used to fish with my buddy Mike a lot on Lake of the Ozarks, and first time I started doing videos, he'd play music all the time. So we were used to fishing with music on Lake of the Ozarks. And then when I started doing content, on YouTube, if you have a song in your video, you get a violation. Sure. There's a copyright violation. So since I started doing these silly videos, we can't listen to music anymore if I'm in the boat filming. So it's gotten real boring. We gotta talk and do normal things.
You gotta sing some original music.
Yeah, I guess we could sing. Yeah, Phil, we're gonna do the giveaway here before too long.
He's just poking the bear.
Yeah,
he was just trying to.
I'm not gonna say the word. He's trying to get me to say the word. Somebody else had a live scope question here. Lenny says, have you had success using live scope in perspective mode? and he says, "P.S. See you in October." So maybe he's going to come down there and jump in the boat with you.
Lenny's a good friend of mine. He's going to be fishing the Toyota Owners Tournament here.
Oh yeah, cool.
October.
Are you going to fish it this year?
I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna. I don't know. I got so much going on. I fished it at Pickwick a couple years, and we fished it at Table Rock like 3-4 years ago when it was there. But I don't know if I'm gonna make it down there this year. It's fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's a good
He
time.
actually won it a few years ago on Toledo Bend.
Really?
Yeah, when I was living down there. So Lenny's a former champion. But so that's what I was explaining earlier. That perspective mount actually allows you to turn the live scope transducer so that it goes horizontal instead of vertical. And
right.
And I've not really noticed a big change with it. If you use it enough, you can use it with the regular mount in 5 feet of water without any problem. I can see fish, I can see structure on the bottom and things like that. So I've never purchased a perspective mount for it.
Darius says country music. That's what he's listening to in the boat.
All right.
Let me see here. We got some more questions. Let's see what Stephanie says here. She says, aren't fish actually used to the noises of the boats and the sonars? Does it really affect them as much as people think? Just wondering. Yeah, that's kind of what we were touching on. I think it, I don't know. There's been times when I've been kind of noisy and, especially with the trolling motor, hitting a lay down or something and still caught a fish in the area, still caught a fish actually off that piece of wood. And there's been times where I remember a tournament we were fishing on the Ohio River out of Galconda, and we were up on this mud flat. I got hung up on there, and we went up super shallow and sitting there popping the jig off or something, spun the trolling motor around and just blew mud everywhere. And my buddy flipped up in that just massive cloud of debris and caught like a 3-pounder. And that was our biggest fish of the tournament. So I think sometimes they're opportunistic. There was a lot of sediment. Maybe it stirred up crawfish and bluegill, and
Right.
That fish was just in there waiting or just took advantage of the situation. But I think you're better to err on the side of silence or a quietness and be stealthy. I think that's one advantage like the kayakers have. Kayaking has really blown up over the last several years, and
Right.
those guys are just super stealthy. They can slide into the grass mats and get real tight into stuff. And I think they catch a lot more shallow fish than those guys in boats, like the trolling motors do, I would imagine.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'd err on the side of less noise is better.
Mm-hmm.
I know I talked to a guy a couple days ago, and he's a big crappie fisherman. And he was talking about, it's funny that Stephanie brought this up, because he was talking about how spooky crappie are and learning that from the live scope. You drop a 16th ounce jig in the bottom of a aluminum boat and watch fish jump, or they'll twitch on that side scan like they're nervous.
Huh.
He said, so, a lot of the old time guides always were, and, my grandpa was the same way, going crappie bluegill fishing with him. If you drop something in the bottom of the boat, man, you got your butt chewed out because you're making too much noise. You're going to scare the fish off. And there's a lot to be said to that. Those old timers were right. I mean, we didn't need live scope to tell us, but I think to both of your points, err on the side of silence.
I thought that was just get the kids to be quiet.
That could have been that. Could have been that too.
It kind of worked both ways.
Yeah, right. It's kind of a win-win.
It worked
situation.
on me.
Win-win situation. I've seen in times though in the back of, and this happened like a couple of weeks ago. We were way back in the back of a creek on a shallow flat back there, and you catch a fish, and I'm talking skinny water, like 2 foot or less, and that fish gets off and starts bouncing around the bottom of the boat. You don't get a bite after that. It takes about 10-15 minutes.
Well, he goes back and tells his buddies, "Don't bite that." There's a guy in a green John boat up there.
I think those shallow fish that are resident fish back there, they're so in tune to their environment. If you're out in like a main lake scenario where you got deeper water and there's maybe more fish moving through the area versus all the way in the very back on a flat, you know, the very back of a bay or a pocket or a cove or the creek. Those fish are resident fish,
Right.
and they know their environment. So I think if you make a lot of noise in that situation, you're more likely to shut those fish down.
Right.
Of course, I don't know. I'm not a fish, but we do have our speculations. Larry wants to know, do you ever fish, I guess, flooded bull shows? It's been like that the last several months, hasn't it?
Yeah, the last couple of years, actually.
Okay.
You know, yes, every chance I get.
The long and the short of it, stay off bull shoals.
Yeah.
It is days.
So I just moved to the Ozarks 3 years ago, and my first time over at Bull Shoals, it was at Normal Pool, and I remember going down the bank and looking way up in the trees and thinking, seeing that water line and thinking, my goodness, how does that water ever get up that high?
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, it was up there. You know, we had gotten so much rain. I mean, you know, last year, for the most part, it was 30, 35 feet above full pool, you know, and it's, the fishing over there can be absolutely amazing. If you love to flip and throw a frog and things like that, when it's above full pool, there's, you know, they're always in the bushes over there. It's amazing. I've caught them in February in the bushes over there. So it's a fun place to fish. You know, you just, there's lots of fish. You know, I know there's some really large fish in that lake. I've never caught anything over 6 pounds over there, but typically, you know, you go over there and you'll catch 20, 30, 40 fish in a day, and it's a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome. Do you know Dale Coven?
I do not.
Okay. He's a guide down there. He's been we were doing a fishing reports live cast for a couple weeks in a row, and we were trying to get some people from the different lakes, and he was the Bull Shoals representative, but he's same thing you said. You know, he said it's phenomenal fishing down there. It's just, well, he posts a lot of pictures, so he seems like he's always catching fish down there. I've never fished it. I fished the White River on the downside of Bull Shoals for trout. We used to make a annual trip down there, and man, that's fun down there. It's beautiful down there. I just love that part of the country. Good stuff. So you said you were you mentioned Toledo Bend. You spent some time in Texas?
I did. Okay. So I'm originally from New Jersey, and when I retired, I moved to Texas, and I lived on Toledo Bend for 9 years. So it was a lot of fun because I lived right on Toledo Bend, and then Sam Rayburn was just, 30 miles away. So some of the best fishing in the country there.
Okay. Yeah, I saw when I got your phone number, I saw New Jersey, and I kind of dug and looked on your website a little bit more, and you retired from the fort. You were a police officer or lieutenant?
I was.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Did a 30-year career in law enforcement. So
appreciate your service, man.
Well, thank you.
So, man, that's I got a lot of respect for police officers, especially the climate that's been going on the last 10 years. I delivered to the police station in the courthouse on my route, and those guys, you just see some stuff just walking through delivering mail. You'll just see some stuff going on. You're like, you'd have to deal with that stuff every day. So, man, I wouldn't want to do it. I'm happy just being a mailman. So, shout out to you guys.
Thank you.
Especially in Jersey, man.
It was a lot of fun. I loved it. But I'm certainly happy to be retired at this stage. So, especially in the present climate, which is very unfortunate for all my brothers and sisters that are still out there working every day to keep us all safe. So,
so how's New Jersey fishing? Did you do a lot of fishing up there?
Yeah. Well, so kind of an interesting story. I'm sure everybody's heard of the War of the Worlds.
Sure.
There's been a million movies made about the War of the Worlds and whatnot.
Orson Welles. What did Orson Welles?
Yeah, but the original story was a radio broadcast back in the 30s where the Martians landed at Grover's Mill, New Jersey. And the reason he picked that location was because his brother lived there. And that's where I grew up, was Grover's Mill, New Jersey. There was a pond there. Yeah, I used to fish it all the time. My dad was never really into the outdoors, but I had an uncle that took me fishing all the time. Loved him for it. It was awesome experience. Things that I still cherish to this day. And I dragged my mom down there, on a daily basis just to fish for a while as well. But later on in life, I got into the. I actually, you said you're fishing the BFLs as a co-angler. I actually fished the Bassmaster Top 100 and the FLW Tour as a co-angler back in the early 90s, trying to learn as much as I could. When, probably shouldn't tell you this, but back then you paid $400 and you fished all 4 days.
Wow.
You couldn't buy a guide trip for that,
No, that'd be an awesome deal.
Yeah, it was awesome. So fished with some great people, learn, tried to take advantage of everything that I could and learn everything that I could. And then, I got bit by the tournament bug and joined the New Jersey Federation and actually made the state team my first 2 years in the Federation and became really good friends with Ike Anelli and Pete Gluzik and the Stoley brothers and Mark Schaefer and all these guys from back in Jersey. And we ended up fishing the invitationals. We all traveled as a group. And of course I'm working, we're all working then, but I actually qualified for the top 150 my first year in the invitationals. And I was still pretty green tournament fishing wise, but the guys that I was with, they all convinced me that, hey, this isn't an easy thing to do. You don't know if it'll happen again. You need to go do it, And it was a pretty special group because there were 8 of us in the original group and 6 of us qualified for the top 150.
Wow.
So we all traveled together, and obviously Mike put us on the map. Phenomenal fisherman, great, phenomenal career, great spokesperson and advocate for kids, fishing wise. But a lot of the other guys, Pete Gluzik has won several Costa Series. He's won an Open. He's fished the Classic several times. Both the Soley brothers fished the Classic. I was fortunate enough to win an Open a few years back. So it was a pretty unique group, a lot of fun fishing with them, learned a lot from each other. Just some special times out on the water. So, then I fished the BASS Tour, after it went from the 150s to the Tour. And then I've qualified to fish the elites a few times, but it's kind of a been there, done that thing. Not going to spend my own money and couldn't get the funding to go do it from somebody else. So never actually did that. Same with the FLW Tour, So now, at this point in my career, I'm kind of enjoying staying close to home. Those days of spending 16, 19 hours behind the wheel to get to a tournament or, kind of that gets old after a while. But there's a lot of fun tournaments here, a lot of great fishermen here. Did the same thing in Texas. I did fish the Toyota Series while I was in Texas and made several championships there, and this year I'm hoping to make, it looks like I'm going to make the regional in the Ozark BFL. I've never tried to make the All-American, and I've tried to kind of focus on that this year. So we'll see what, hopefully the trend will go well and we'll get there in the next few months. But it's been a fun career fishing, Fishing in New Jersey was completely different. A lot of tidal water, a lot of glacier lakes, things like that. Then you go to Texas and everything's reservoirs with grass in them. You know, any moment you can catch a fish of a lifetime down there. And then up here, it's all clear water. You know, it's a completely different environment up here. Something that has taken me a while to get used to, but finally become a little competitive here. You know, trying to get your head beat in quite a few times here, but it's still fun.
What brought you to the Ozarks?
I've fished a lot of tournaments on Table Rock through the BASS Tour and the Opens. I was here the year the tornado came through. Mm-hmm. The fishing was phenomenal too, just when that happened. But I've visited here quite a few times. You know, fished some tournaments up on Lake of the Ozarks. Morgan Taylor, Chad Morgan Taylor, who you've had on your show in the past, good friend of mine, came up here to visit with him and just kind of, fell in love with the area. You know, it's pretty neat to have, Table Rock, Bull Shoals, Lake of the Ozarks, and that little sleeper we were talking about earlier, Taneycomo, in the middle of it. But it's a pretty neat area here.
It's hard not to fall in love with the Ozarks once you've been there.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. It really is, and compared to Texas, the climate here is much more like New Jersey for us. The snow and the cold in the wintertime, like that a lot. Down in Texas, boy, in the summertime, it's hot. I was just there a couple of weeks ago, and I think the heat index, the lowest it was for a week, was 107.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. Bill says, what's up from South New Jersey?
I think Bill and I go back a ways.
Yeah. That's why I threw it up there. I thought you guys might know each other. Todd wants to know, how much difference is the noise of a sonar versus a hydro wave? Geez, I don't know. Do you use a hydro wave at all on your boat?
I don't. So they actually emit two different sounds. The sonar is a ping. It sends the sound down to the bottom. It bounces off of objects either on the bottom or somewhere in between, and it comes back and it's read by the machine. The hydro wave is actually emitting fish sounds, bait fish, whether they're schooling or running from. I haven't used one in a long, long time, but there's a number of different settings on there for bait sounds, and they're really completely different. On the one hand, sonar can scare fish off. The hydro wave is supposed to make fish active and want to bite. So they're actually pretty different.
My buddy Mike Marfell, the guy I was talking about fishing Lake of the Ozarks with, he's ran a hydro wave for years, and he said several times he's seen turtles swim up to the trolling motor when he's got the hydro wave on, looking for wounded bait fish or whatever they're looking for. So it's not just, it's something that draws anything that's used to their aquatic environment, turtles, fish. So I don't know. I don't know if, some people swear by it, but I haven't had any experience to know, whether it makes that big a difference or not.
Well, it's emitting real sounds. They're recorded sounds from real bait fish. So I know guys that swear that, they turn it on and they come up schooling around the boat. I've never really experienced that before, but like I said, as far as comparing it to sonar, they're really two completely different sounds.
I've heard a couple of guys tell me that they use it to drown out the live well pumps, the pinging of your sonar, all of that, just to help relax the fish.
It's kind of like scent on a bait. You can just use that to mask the human scent on a bait.
Right.
Speaking of scent,
Yeah, Phil, let me hit this real quick. Phil says, heck, live well pumps are noisy, but we keep them running. Maybe that's why I only weigh in 1 fish per tournament. Yeah, but you got a real healthy fish in that live
that's
well.
right. That's right. He's got his own aquarium.
Yeah.
This is something I was wanting to touch on. Winning Edge Fishing asks, how much do you rely on using scents as you fish? If so, what brand of scent do you use? Are you a big scent guy?
No. Well, let me. How do I? So many of the baits that I use today have scent injected in them. So in that sense, yes. I used to use some of the dips and things years ago when when the bite got really tough. I think that scent can make a difference in getting the fish to hold on to the bait longer, and even for those fish that have been caught before, scents can make a big difference. But many of the baits today, I still use a lot of Zoom baits, and sometimes I'll spray some garlic on them, things of that nature. But I use a lot of missile baits, and they have scent injected into them, and you can feel it and smell it when you pull it out of the bag. So in that sense, yes, I do use a lot of scent.
Those missile baits are sometimes a booger to rig up because they're so
Slimy,
much
man. Yeah.
slime and
Yeah,
good stuff on them.
yeah, they got so much good stuff on them, you can't get them on the hook.
That's right. That's right. I remember the first time I pulled out a D-bomb, it was like, I can't even rig this thing.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, it takes some patience sometimes. But
Andy says, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Andy.
George, yeah, that's a possibility. Just get a hold of me again, and we'll try to make that happen. Let's see. Andy says he always likes visiting the trout fishery out there, Taneycomo. It's got some big old fish swimming around in there.
Yeah.
Hella bass is out. Thanks for stopping by, Rich. So I want to talk about the Kurt Dove, the Pro Bass Camp. That's a pretty interesting thing. How'd you get involved with that?
Kurt and I go way back. We've been friends for a long time, and he initiated this camp along with some guys from New Mexico who do a lot of youth fishing and hunting camps, and they had Kurt had guided them on Lake Amistad, and the group talked about an opportunity to have all these kids come in and basically instruct them on how to what patterns were, how to what the fish were doing, how to make them bite, different baits, lines, setups, sonars, the from soup to nuts. And it started off with a small group. A lot of the kids were from New Mexico who had a relationship with the gentleman from there, but it's grown into just a phenomenal opportunity for these kids. The two camps that I was a part of at Lake Amistad this year had over 70 kids in them.
Wow.
And they're only what we do is it's a 4-day, basically a 4-day camp. They come in one evening, the next morning we'll take them out on the lake. There's 2 students per instructor, and we take them out on the lake, soup to nuts about the boats, the tackle, and all that stuff, and then we fish and try different patterns and try to put things together. Kind of get them thinking about the evolution of transitions and all that stuff. You'll fish from for it's about 7 hours on the water, and then come back to the camp, have lunch with them, and they get seminars in the afternoon, and then a flipping and pitching contest in the evening. And later in the week, the winner, whoever wins that contest, gets a rod and reel from Lose. So that goes on for 3 days, and then they have a tournament on the final day, and they have to put together what they learned during the week and perform in that tournament. And he does a live Facebook deal, for the weigh-in. The parents come in for the weigh-in, and the first, second, third, top spot, first, second, third actually get scholarship money. So it works out really well for the students, and it's been so well received. We've had such great kids there. We've had kids that have moved on from, they'll range. I think the range is 12 to 18. So we have some middle school kids mixed in with some kids that are actually in college, fishing on college teams, and it's amazing how they help each other out. But we've had state champions there, and this year one of the past students actually won a collegiate national championship. So over on Hartwell. So
that's one heck of a summer camp. Let me tell you,
nice.
That would have been an awesome opportunity growing up.
Oh man, can you imagine? I mean, just I don't know. There was no high school fishing or college fishing when I was a kid. You had to skip school to go fishing.
Right.
But to have that,
you didn't get out of school to go fishing. You had to skip school to go fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
I was fortunate enough. I caught the beginning of college fishing. So unfortunately, I had moved colleges the year that my college that I left got the team. Ended up coming back a couple years later solely to fish on their team, to be part of it. Wasn't a great team, no offense, but just we didn't have much activity. There wasn't much interest in our school, but it still was an amazing opportunity for a college level guy to get the ins and the outs of the business, to travel the country on the school's dime, and learn some new fisheries. I mean, I value those couple years that I got to do that. That was some of the best fishing that I've got to experience in my life. Now, fast forward, I wish I was about 10 years younger in college now and have the knowledge that I have now.
Yeah, it's changed a lot.
So yeah, it's amazing. Some of these college kids are so far ahead of where I certainly was at that age. And some of the high school kids, and the school ranges. I mean, we have a lot of kids that are very, very capable of anything you throw at them. Very accomplished with all their skills. And then we have some that are, just learning, one of the great experience this year, one of the greatest things was, and we have instructors. I mean, Denny Brower's an instructor there, Kurt, Matt Reed. There's a lot of guys that come in and participate in this because it's such a fun thing to do. And because the kids have such a strong interest in learning, there's no messing around. It's focused, and they're focused on everything that we can give them. But a few years ago, a young kid from Alabama came to the camp, and man, he was as green could be. Had to strip all the braid off his line, off his reels, because Amistad's crystal clear, and it took a few years, but we finally got him straightened out, and he ended up winning the championship, the tournament, his final year there. He went on, and he actually fishes for Auburn University now. And this year he came back as an instructor. And the other kids see, what can happen, with these opportunities that lay ahead of them, which is really neat for everybody there. And we try to tell the kids, look, it's not, not everybody's going to be a professional fisherman. It's not about being a professional fisherman. It's about being an accomplished fisherman so that when you go out on the water, you have a good time. We want you to have a good time. And the better you are at this, the better time you're going to have. You don't want to go out there and not catch anything. You want to go out there and understand what's going on, put a pattern together, and really have a productive day. And that's what that camp is all about. And it's been very, very successful. Really a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. That's invaluable to be able to get some on the water teaching and schooling from people that have been doing it for a long time. What age group is there a cutoff like?
It's 12 to 18.
12 to 18. Okay.
So you're a little bit beyond that.
Yeah, I could cut my goatee off. I don't know.
I was just thinking if I shaved everything off and try to grow a little bit of hair.
There you go. Well, you can come in as an infant with that head.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
He meant that in a nice way.
It is pretty smooth. I did shave it this morning. So
very nice. Very nice. But yeah, it's a great camp, and Kurt's really done a great job with it. He also does a third one up on Oneida Lake in New York. And it's funny because we've actually had a few kids that had attended the Amistad camps, and now they're going up there so that they can catch the smallmouths.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really great. I recommend it to anybody. You can check it out at probasscamp.com. It's really a lot of fun and a great opportunity for kids to learn.
I'm sure those spots fill up really fast too. So
yeah, they do. I'm pretty sure he turns people away. We actually have people come from all over the country. We've had people from the state of Washington. There was one young man from the state of New York. He pretty much hitchhiked his way down to come to the camp. It was amazing to hear how he had gotten down there. But
wow.
Yeah, they come from all over the country to participate in that.
Ken is this is funny. Ken's a great dude. He's been following the channel a lot lately, and he's been fishing a Monday night bass tournament. He fished last week, and he was on the stream listening to us while he's in the middle of a tournament. So he's doing it again tonight. He said it's a little bit tougher tonight. They got scattered storms, but he also wanted to say doing it for the kids, excellent. So in reference to the bass camp, that's cool that you're doing that Kurt's doing the northern stuff and the southern stuff, because as a fisherman, if you're from the north, it can be challenging coming down to south and having, coming south and fishing grass and all the things that you see down south. And then same thing coming from the south, going up to north is a complete learning experience. So you could actually tackle both of those in one camp.
Yes, you could.
It sounds like Dave needs to start one at like Table Rock.
There's a chance that might happen.
Awesome.
Yeah, because there's a lot of great young kids here. A lot of high school fishing is a big deal here. Same with the college stuff. A lot of universities around here have teams. So there's a good chance something might happen in the future.
Good deal.
Yeah,
good deal.
Central location. That's a great area to have it.
Yeah.
Did you guys when you're down there in Texas, South Texas is notorious for having like a Sasquatch sightings? Did you hear anything about Sasquatch down there in that neck of the woods?
Yeah, they're very, very predominant down there.
Okay. So that's part of the course. You have to teach the kids to be safe in case you see a Sasquatch.
Yes, because they can swim too,
They can, yeah.
Very fast.
Yes.
Yeah. You'll see them go through the live scope occasionally. I've heard. I don't know.
It's a big one when that happens.
Yep.
So I was going to ask you a couple more things. Oh, back to the Bassmaster 150s. That was that a format where you had two pros in the boat?
No, that was the invitationals.
That was the invitationals.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always thought that would be interesting to actually draw a boater on boater and try to hash all that out.
Man, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty because how fishermen are.
Oh yeah.
Everybody exaggerates. Everybody's on them. You never drew a guy that wasn't on them, and they always, you used to have to flip for a boat. Like if you and I got drawn, you'd flip a coin to see whose boat we were going to take, unless you were honest and said, "Look, I got nothing, man. We'll just take your boat and go to your fish." That didn't happen very often.
That never happens. No.
No. and you get paired with a guy that wasn't on them, had really not been truthful about the whole thing, and you waste hours of the day, and it was excruciating if you were on them, and you had to wait till your 4 hours was up, till their 4 hours was up, so that you could get behind the wheel and go to where you wanted to go, to catch some fish. So I'm very thankful they got rid of that format.
Yeah.
I bet so.
That ruined a lot of friendship.
Was it a coin flip who was first and who was second, or was it a mutual agreement? I'm sure some of them were hashed out with choice words, but
there were some strong conversations with some people, that I'm familiar with. For the most part, you would flip for the boat, and then there would be a discussion on, okay, well, you're fish biting in the morning or you're fish biting in the afternoon, and vice versa. And you try to plot it out, that, hey, we need to go here first and then there second. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, it was a very, very difficult situation most times. I think in the time that I fished under that format, I think I had one guy the whole time that was actually on some fish, and the other guys were like lost, and you knew it as soon as you got there, and then you knew it was going to be a long, long day. But when they dumped that format, everybody was clapping.
Oh, I bet so. I bet so. That had to be just. I mean, I've heard and read about some of those stories back when it was like that, and
Now I know guys where it worked out. Like the guy really was on them, and they went there and they caught the heck out of his fish, and things like that. But there was a lot of cases where, boy, it was a long day.
Oh, we got a winner. I've been watching these, and she is like super
she's on
lucky,
fire.
isn't she? Stephanie got.
Stephanie
she won
Martin.
again. She's on it. Yeah, I just sent her a package last week. Well, good deal. All right, Stephanie. It's like you're gonna have everything that these companies that I'm working with have eventually if you keep on winning. So good job.
Congratulations.
What'd she win?
She won some jigs from Cumberland Pro Lures and some plastics from Hawgz Custom Baits. So I'm gonna send her a little tackle pack. I'll have to. I've already sent her some jigs, so might have to get into my personal secret stash and send her some of the real good stuff.
Uh-oh.
Yep. So, somebody was talking about the invitationals a while back, and they drew Rick Clunn, and so they got to see a master, throw a square bill crankbait. So they kind of looked at it as like a learning experience, similar as a co-angler and a BFL. Maybe some days you draw somebody that is a really good fisherman, and that day is not so much about cashing a check. It's about watching somebody make decisions and how they, apply different techniques on the water.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to look at the co-angler thing from the perspective of I was going to try to learn everything I could during that day. And if I caught some fish and won some money, that was just, icing on the cake. So
100%. That's why we got into the BFLs. We wanted to learn Kentucky Lake, and what better way to do it next to paying a guide who's on fish to watch somebody break down Kentucky Lake. I mean,
right.
As you know, as a guide, your main goal is to put that person on fish, depending on what the guide trip obviously is all about. But, you got a guy that has spent a couple days on Kentucky Lake, broke it down, and I would say 95% of my boaters were genuine guys that tell you exactly what we're going to go out and do and be perfectly honest with you before you ever wet a line that day.
Yeah.
And just to see how their mind worked and why we're going here. And if you ask the right questions, most of them are going to be willing to tell you everything that they got, because they want you to succeed probably more than you want to succeed if you have the right mindset going in. But at the end of the day, you got to put the pattern together and help them put the puzzle together when it changes on Saturday, because everyone that I fished in that Thursday, Friday pattern never panned out. It's always a new pattern on Saturday.
Well, you got two different people. You know, you can learn a lot from the co-angler in the back of the boat. You may be fishing a pattern that you were bound and determined was going to work, and it might be a little slow. Say you're flipping a jig up front and the co-angler's throwing a shaky head. All of a sudden he's got 2 or 3 or 4 bites and you haven't got bit yet. Obviously something happened. And if you were fishing by yourself, you wouldn't have noticed that.
Right.
So it's kind of like it can be like a team tournament, but it's not, but it can be. You can learn a bunch from each other.
I've had guys in the back of my boat whip my butt one side and down the other.
Yep.
More times than I'd like to admit, but
yeah.
I know, Dave, you haven't had any of that.
So let me tell you a quick story.
Story time.
Yeah. So I agree with you, Gabe. It can work both ways, and it's best if both guys get along and you kind of, you know. So as I mentioned, I started out as a co-angler, so I understand what it's like to be in the back of the boat and want to catch fish, you know. But I also want that guy to be patient enough to catch the fish. You know what I mean? Don't throw over in front of me. Don't push me. I'm going to put you in position to catch some fish. It's up to you to execute, you know, and this will all work out during the day. Don't worry. You're going to catch some fish, you know, but there are times where that guy, he's just got the magic touch, you know, and I've had that too, where I'm catching them left and right, and the guy in the back of the boat, I give him the bait and he's not catching them. He can't catch them. There's just some little nuance or something that's happening that, you know, he's just not able to hook up with them, you know. But a few years back on Lake Amistad, it was 65 feet low. And I do a seminar trying to keep a positive attitude, you know, when you're out there, because so many times we're met with challenges, and like you said, one day they're eating a jig, the next day they're on a shaky head. You know, it's a fluid environment. It's constantly changing, and it can change in a matter of minutes, you know. But so Amistad is like 65 feet low, and it's really, really difficult to get a bite. So difficult that I went 5 days of practice without one. 5 days. All right.
Wow.
Never had a bite. Okay. By the third day, I just wanted to break everything in the boat, you know. If I could have got my money back, I'd have just gone home. It was that bad, you know. But on the first day of the tournament, about 10:30, I got on a little deal where I found some emergent grass in about 34 feet of water. Throw the drop shot out there, and every now and then you'd see some bait move around. And I ended up catching a limit. And my co-angler was a guy from he'd just gotten out of the military, had spent most of his, you know, had spent many years over in Afghanistan and Iraq and all that stuff. And it was his first tournament. He was so excited to be in the boat, you know, and be there. And you're just rooting for the guy, you know. But he actually, you know, it's a three bass limit for BASS with the co-anglers, and he caught a limit. So I was happy for him. You know, we were all excited, you know, and for me, I was like, man, I can't believe this, you know, not a bite in 5 days. And here I go, I catch a limit, you know. So the next day I go back into that same area, and I had the first waypoint I was going to go to. I'm about 100 yards away from it. I come off plane. I'm going to move up to it, you know. I don't even have the trolling motor in the water, and the guy in the back of my boat's going, fish, you know, and I'm like, well, he must have seen one on the back graph or something. So I put the trolling motor in the water, and I pick up my rod, and he's yelling at me, I got a fish, you know. And I'm like, there's no way, dude. You know, we're out in like 50 feet of water, you know. We haven't even stopped skidding yet. He's got this fish on. Turns out to be a 6-pound largemouth. Right?
Holy cow.
Yeah. So now I'm thinking, well, maybe they moved out and they're suspended out here. I go around, I can't find them anywhere, you know. So I go back up towards where I was catching them the day before, trying to stay in that 34-foot range, you know. And every time he set the hook, it was a giant, you know. I mean, and I caught a limit. I caught another limit, you know, but he caught 3 fish that weighed 15.
Dang.
Right?
It's hard to say positive in that.
Are you kidding me? I mean, he's throwing fish away that I can't, you know, I mean, I was like, oh my God, I could have used that fish. You know, I mean, that plays with your head big time.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
And I mean, it was so bad that at one point, I mean, I saw one on the graph and I can see the drop shot bouncing around him. He's not moving. I'm thinking, oh, that can't be a bass. So I turned the boat away. He pitches down there. It was a 4.5 pound largemouth, you know? So now you're like, you're crazy, you know? It's just natural, right? Well, so the third day, I go back out. I make the finals, believe it or not, and I fish the third day, and I catch another limit, and my co-angler catches a 3-fish limit as well, you know. But that guy on the second day actually won the co-angler side, won a boat, you know. But I never broke the 10-pound mark, and out of 186 anglers, I finished 9th in that tournament, you know. So
wow,
so it was tough.
With that 15, what those fish would have done for me had I been able to catch them, you know. So it happens, you know. It happens. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, we were throwing the exact same bait, the exact same weight, the exact same length between the hook and the weight, you know, 6-pound line, everything. And he just, you know, everyone that bit him was a big one, and everyone that bit me was just a keeper, you know. So it's a funny game sometimes, but it was quite a learning experience, and something I share with your viewers that I learned in that tournament, which really turned out to be pivotal in the success that I had was, and it happens here on this on Table Rock as well. This was a February tournament in Amistad, February, early March, something like that. And there's a lot of loons on the lake then. And something I learned that if the loons dove more than one time in a spot, there was bait there. And I could go over there and pitch my drop shot to where the loons were diving and many times catch a fish. In fact, on the last day, we caught all our keepers off of loons.
The double loon dive.
Yep.
That's good. That's good stuff there.
Yep.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that bass can tell the difference between a loon and a cormorant. Because if them cormorants are diving there, they won't be there, you know. But they'll be around those loons for some reason. So
you think the loons are maybe only keying in on shad, and they're leaving the bass alone, or
I guess they eat smaller fish than the cormorants do, you know. Or I don't know. I don't know how it works. I just know that you can catch them off of loons. You'll never catch them off cormorants.
That's interesting. And those loons are fast, man. I was up at Mille Lacs this year, and I had to pull. I was throwing the S waver, trying to catch we were catching pretty good smallmouth, and I was just going to see if I could catch a smallmouth on a glide bait. And we saw this loon out there, and I made a cast pretty far away from it, and that sucker went down. And I got kind of nervous. You know, my buddy Ron's like, you better reel that thing in. And I was reeling it in, and that thing was going like 20 miles an hour behind that S-Waver. And I barely got it in the boat before it grabbed it out of my hand. So they can swim fast.
Yeah, they're fast. Yep.
Let's see. Let me check these comments here, see if we got any more questions on here. Oh, Jeff has a question about co-anglers. He says, how do you feel about co-anglers not offering to help out with gas?
Yeah, that's not good, Jeff.
Yeah.
That's not good. In fact, when I was a co-angler, I was so fearful of forgetting to give my boater money that it would be the first thing I would do in the morning. You know, you got to remember that guys, you're not just fishing that day, you know, and you, Jonathan, you mentioned it, you know, guys spend several days on a lake practicing to find fish, not only for himself, but for you as well. You know, he's making them available to you. He spent a lot of money on gas alone, not a lot, you know, let alone his equipment, his time away from home, all that other stuff. I mean, the least you can do is offer to pay for half the gas for that day. I don't think it's going to break anybody, and it makes for much better relationships. Now, if the guy's wealthy enough where he says, "Hey, don't worry about it, I got it," that's fine. At least you offered. But I would always offer to pay at least half the gas for that day.
For sure. Makes the day go a lot smoother, whether you do it at the beginning or at the end. That,
Yeah, you should definitely offer. I mean, I always offer.
Always.
And sometimes it's $20, sometimes it's $40, sometimes it's 50. A lot of times guys are like, God, don't worry about it, but you definitely want to offer, because like you just said, they've been out there working their butt off to try to find some fish, and that goes for a bad day too. Even if you have a day where you didn't catch any fish, well, the money's still spent and the time is still spent on gas.
Exactly. And that's fishing. We all know that those things can happen, but at least you were out there. You don't have to pay the insurance. You don't have to pay the travel costs. You're not paying a boat payment, all the other stuff. You're just riding in the back of somebody's bass boat. I mean, that's the least you could do is offer to pay for some of the gas that's being burned during that day.
Well, heck,
trust you, we're trying to make you catch fish. We're not driving around so you can't catch fish. We're trying to catch fish.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, and a lot of times what Gabe and I did when the BFLs, we're learning a lake. You can't say the BFLs are what, $100 the co-angler right now.
Yeah,
you can't book an 8-hour guide trip for $150.
No, you can't. No.
I promise you can't. And if you do, it's probably not a guide that you want to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and you may not, you're going to have anglers that are more dialed in than other anglers.
For sure.
So, but you do have a chance of getting in a boat with somebody that is, a local stick or somebody that's really got a lot of knowledge of the lake. I've been in the boat with a lot of really good fishermen. Some of them I didn't even know who they were until I got in the boat with them, and you can just tell these guys know what they're doing. So,
sure.
$100 is a very reasonable price, to get out in a boat with somebody all day long. So back to, I was going to say, Jeff, he said he's had several not offer and didn't feel right to ask. Ask anyway, Jeff, because that's always on people's mind. Money's money, and just because they don't ask you for gas money, you should still offer. That's just the right thing to do.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've chased people down to give them the money.
100%.
Yeah.
I've stuck it in consoles because they refuse to take it. So
yeah. Yep.
I'll throw 40 in a console when they refuse to take it, and then I'll get a phone call later on. You didn't have to do that, and you ended up making a lifelong friend out of it. So
absolutely. That's happened many times, Jonathan. You're a good man.
Frankie says, what do you think about if your co-angler got his limit and you don't, and he helps you get your limit by catching fish and giving it to you so you can fish the way in? So you have fish the way in. You can't do that, man. That's illegal. That's not something that should happen in the boat. That's in the rules. So we probably don't even need to address that.
Yeah.
Your fish are your fish, and your boater's fish are his boater's fish.
It's all about integrity.
Right. That's right.
And now that happens. A lot of these bass club tournaments, I've heard of that happening.
Yeah.
People kind of collaborating and putting their limits together so they can win first prize. But like you said, that's integrity. It's all about morals and doing the right thing.
It'll catch up with you in the end.
Yeah.
I promise you. You can't. Karma. It's a bad deal.
Oh, Jeff is a boater. He said he always offered as a co. Yeah, my bad, Jeff. I misread that. So anybody else got any questions on here for Dave? I got a few more I'd like to ask real quick before we let you go. Okay, missile baits. I saw Chad did a video on one of their jigs and what was it called? A twin turbo trailer. I didn't even know missile baits had a jig. Is that something they just came out with, or has that been in their lineup for a long time?
No, they've had jigs for quite some time. In fact, a lot of the jigs, the jig that you saw that video on is called a Headbanger Jig. That's done in collaboration with Mike Iaconelli.
Okay.
Mike has designed a lot of baits for John Cruz, who's a very good friend of mine, owns Missile Baits, fishes the Elite Series, and he and Mike have collaborated on a lot of the baits. There's several flipping baits that have kind of like that Kitech type head, tungsten head on it, small profile, and he even has some mini jigs now that work really well on bedding fish. So he's got if you go on the Missile Baits website, you'll see a full line of jigs there available to you, some with heavy hooks, some with light hooks. But those headbangers are great structure jigs, absolutely great structure jigs.
Yeah, I was looking at that video, that head design on it. It looks like it's
very
unique, made to crawl through cover.
Yep. And
what's your favorite? I was gonna say, what's your favorite missile bait in the lineup of the soft plastic lineup? Do you have one?
Yeah, without a doubt. That would be the Baby D bomb. I can't tell you how many fish I catch on that thing flipping, spring, summer, fall, even in the winter here. It's a great flipping bait. I love it because none of the appendages. I got one here somewhere. Where did it go?
I know that's one of Chad, when Morgan Taylor was on here, he said that's one of his go-tos as well, the baby.
Yeah. So this is the Baby D bomb, and this is called the Desert Storm, which is a great color for springtime and the fall as well. But if you'll notice, it doesn't have any appendages sticking out that are going to stick on the cover. So it goes straight down through the cover. It's got these tails on it that flap really well. But one of the big things is, and Jonathan, you mentioned it, I mean, these things are so slick from the scent that's in them. But the ribs, these are on the baby and the regular D bomb. When you pull that out of the water, air gets in there. And when you put it back in the water, there's a bubble trail that goes down. It's just another fish attractor for them. But these are so versatile. You put them on the back of a jig as a trailer. And I've used them on swim jigs, the Headbanger Jig, flipping jigs, everything. It's just a phenomenal bait. The fish it comes in a wide variety of colors. This is a great color. I use this a lot, but I also use a color called a Super Bug. It's got a blue flash to it, on a dark blue flash on one side and green pumpkin on the other. It mimics a brim perfectly. There's times of the year where I'll take that one and put a little chartreuse on the tail. I can't say enough about these. I catch fish on these things, year round and in all conditions. So,
well, since that's your favorite bait, what's your setup for flipping flooded bushes then? Rod, reel, line?
I'll use two different rods, Jonathan. One is I'm with Castaway Rods. I've been with them for a long time. In fact, I was with them years ago when I made the top 150. But they have a really good flipping stick, 7'6". I'm not the tallest guy in the world. Been vertically challenged all my life, so those 8-foot rods are just too big for me. That 7'6" is real comfortable. It's got a fast tip on it, but a whole lot of backbone, and it works really well. I'll use a Hypermag, Lew's Hypermag reel in either 7.3 or 8.3 on it. Super light. I always have either Vicious 20-pound or 25-pound on it. Now, Castaway came out with another rod a couple years ago. It's called the Bassmaster. It's only 7.3. It's a little bit lighter rod. It's still got a lot of backbone, but it's got a little bit more tip to it. And when I'm fishing around docks or real close to the cover, I'll typically use that rod over the 7.6. I can get the bait into tighter areas with that shorter rod. It still has all the power I need to get the fish out of the bushes and whatnot. But I always use a bobber stopper, and anywhere from a half to a 3/4 ounce weight. And typically I'm going to use a VMC flipping hook in 3/0 on the baby D-bomb and a 4/0 on the regular D-bomb. If I'm tying directly to the hook, I'm using a Snell knot on it. I think that works really well. However, lately, last year, and I'm going to give him credit where credit's due, I happened to be watching Bass Live one time when they were up on Lake Champlain, and Seth Fighter was flipping some bushes or flipping some docks. And I noticed that he had an O-ring on his hook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So bobber stopper weight tied directly to the O-ring. Okay. And I'm looking at him thinking, why didn't I think of that? You know, because that Snell knot's a pain in the neck to tie sometimes, you know, especially if it's windy or something. But it's so much easier just to put a Palomar knot on an O-ring. And it allows the bait to move more freely. You get a lot more action.
Uh-huh.
And I've had a lot of success with it. I think my hook ratio is much better with the O-ring as opposed to be without it. And I get less fish that are actually jumping off the hook.
Really? I just bought some of those. I just got them like 2 weeks ago, and I haven't used them yet. But it's good to hear somebody with some good positive feedback on that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Okay.
I've all my hooks have that O-ring on them now.
Now, are you putting your own O-ring on that VMC hook, or are you getting the one with the welded ring on it?
No, I'm putting my own on it.
Okay.
Just a heavy split shot or a split ring?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I think it's a number three O-ring on it. Works. I think you'll be surprised at the results.
Okay.
Really,
Now, are you putting that on a flipping hook or an EWG?
on a flipping hook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll tell you something else. I'll give you a little tip too. It's actually something that I learned from Chad. If you find you're missing some fish on that flipping hook, a lot of times on them flipping hooks, and that's why I don't use an EWG, is because a lot of times that hook point is pointed towards the eye.
Yeah.
It's in line with the eye. You don't want that. You want that the tip of that hook, the point of that hook, to be above the eye. So on a flipping hook, if you open it up just a little bit, just a fraction, maybe 1/8 of an inch tops, you'll find out that you get a whole lot more hookups with it. As opposed to,
I wonder why they do that. I've noticed that.
On
You
the
know, I started
flipping
noticing that several years ago. How it's
yeah. If you look at them, they're almost all pointed right at the eye. You don't want that. You want that thing sitting up a little bit.
huh.
I think you'll have a lot more success with it that way.
Well, I'm gonna start putting those into rotation because it just makes sense. I mean, it makes total sense. You get better action for your bait because it's free swinging. You know, I fish a hard head a lot. You know, a swing jig, same thing.
Yes.
You get that free swinging hook behind there, and the fish can't throw the bait probably a little bit better. So I'm definitely gonna start doing that. I got to buy some more. I only bought 5/0. I think I got to buy some smaller ones.
I'm going to throw that baby D-bomb a little bit more.
Say again.
I'm sorry, Jonathan.
I said I'm going to have to start throwing that baby D-bomb a little bit more.
Yeah, man. You know, I can't say enough good things about that bait. That's an awesome bait, and I've caught them everywhere on it. It's not just here. You know, I used them a lot exclusively in Texas. I've used them on the East Coast. I mean, if you throw that wobble head, you can throw them on the back of that wobble head, and you'd be surprised how many fish you catch on that thing.
Okay. That's actually where I was introduced to the D-bomb, was on the back of a wobble head.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I'm going to try to make one.
I got one tied on right now. I got a baby D1 tied on.
Do you?
Yeah. Dill pickle. Dill pickle is one of my favorite colors.
There you go. Yeah.
I love that one.
They got a new one out, Candy Crush. It's It's a good one. It's
Okay.
a real good one. Yep.
See, I'm going to end up buying another 5 or 6, 7 packs. What was that first color you showed?
Desert Storm.
Desert Storm.
Desert Storm. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that have a lot of orange in it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I guess you couldn't see it real well.
Well, I'm half blind anyway, so.
Here, let me. Maybe you can see it against the shirt.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
See it
It's
sliding off,
sliding
all that good stuff on there.
That's all the good stuff on it.
That's right. Stephanie said that Scott Duck actually guessed the same number. So Scott, get a hold of me if you're still on here. Just hit me up on Instagram at 10horsemonty6 and send me your shipping information, and I'll get you some product out here by the end of the week. I was going to ask you something else. Oh, okay. So Jay wants to know, how do you think where was that at? Let me find that again. Jay Beffa had let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. He wants to know, how's the U.S. Open Bass Pro Championship going to be won at Table Rock in November?
Well, I'll tell you, it wouldn't surprise me, depending on the weather situation, if it wasn't one on a whopper plopper.
Top water.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I bet those guys are going to be looking for 5 bites, and that's it.
Yep. And typically on that plopper, you pick it up and you throw it all day long. You know, you're not going to get a lot of bites on it, but they're going to be the right ones. So,
it's kind of like throwing that frog. I mean, you're going to throw that frog across the grass mat. And you're looking for 5. You're not looking for 25.
Yep.
Let's see. What's the best place to order D-bombs, the baby D's from?
You can order them right from missilebaits.com.
Okay, Scott wants to know, what about the flutter spoon bite on Table Rock?
It can be incredible. There's no doubt about it. And we're getting there right now. And that could be another deal also for that U.S. Open thing. You know, you drop that flutter spoon around some of those docks that they like to hang out on. You know, you can catch some really big bags on it. But that now, and I'm going to warn Scott, there's been quite a few fish, you know, especially if you're fishing community areas, that have been already caught on those things, and I've seen them on that live scope just run away from that flutter spoon. So you got to be careful where you use it, but it is a great technique, and it does catch a lot of really good fish here.
For sure. And honestly, to your point, Scott, it catches good fish. And when that bite's on, it's an awesome bite. It doesn't matter if it's on Table Rock or Kentucky Lake or your local lake. If you get on the right school of fish, that flutter spoon bite is ridiculous. I just started experimenting with it a couple years ago, and I've been trying to get my dad out on the day that it's right, because it is a bite like no other. If you've never experienced it, it's one of those. For me, it's probably one of the best bites next to a topwater explosion that you'll ever experience.
Well, and you got to know what to look for. You can't just, it's not something like you search. It's a spot specific. You have to see the fish set up the right way.
Exactly.
Jeff wants to know, Big Bass Bash on Lake of the Ozarks, his first time in October. What bait's gonna win the tournament?
Oh man, tell him to hit me up after the divisional. There, we're there for 2 days at the end of September.
Yeah, I'll be down there too. I'll be in the back of the boat.
Yeah.
So you're sitting pretty good in the points then?
I'm in 7th right now. So,
oh yeah, you're sitting great.
Yeah, so I only need to catch a few fish up there to make it to the regional. So
I'm in 45th. So I had a bad day 2 on Table Rock. You know how we fished those back to back? I finished 13th in the first one, and then I zeroed on the second one. So that pushed me back to like 61st, and then I jumped back to 45th at Truman. So I just need to catch 1 or 2 fish out of the back of the boat, and I think I'll I'll make the regional. Hopefully.
There you go.
Yeah, I want to get down there and fish Norfolk.
Yeah, I've never been there, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you think it's probably like bull shows, similar or not? Totally different.
I've heard that's what it's like.
Okay.
But I really don't know. I have no idea what we're looking at. I'm probably going to go there in the next couple weeks. You know, I'll go there before we go to Lake of the Ozarks, because it goes off limits right after Lake of the Ozarks.
Okay. Gotcha. So one more thing, and we'll wrap this up. It's getting kind of late. Right now, the fish, it's summer pattern at Table Rock and across the country. And then they're going to be moving into the fall pattern. Okay. When do you start looking for those fish in the backs of coves and pockets? What kind of change do you see? What makes you start wandering back off the main lake?
Two things. One is the bait balls. You know, you'll see the bait balls towards the backs of the creeks, you know, moving into the creeks. You'll recognize that there's some fish breaking on them, but you know, there'll be birds on the edges of the banks, you know, waiting for them to come by and things of that nature. And then the other is water temperatures. That water temperature starts to get down into the, you know, closer to that 70s, you know, into that 70s range. You know, they start to move to the backs of the creeks. Right now, here on Table Rock, I mean, I mentioned to you earlier, they're out on the main channel. There's giant bait balls everywhere out on the main channel. And, you know, today, you know, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of fun today catching them over 50 feet of water, you know, on top waters. You know, they're just out there pushing all that bait around. But that bait is moving, okay? It's, you know, it's up and it's moving. So it's not going to be long before they start moving into those creeks, and they hit those secondary points and then back in further, you know. And the further they get back in there, it seems the shallower you can catch the fish. Those fish, I've caught a lot of really good fish, you know, on dirt shallow cover, because there's so much bait back there, you know, roaming around. But it's basically just follow the bait.
Okay, good deal. Do you throw a jerkbait much in the fall?
I hate to admit this, but I am probably the worst jerkbait fisherman in the world.
Really?
I hate that thing.
Yeah. You got to learn how to fish it, or you got to start liking it down there, though.
Oh man, yeah. I'm only hurting myself, but I just and Stacy King is a friend of mine, and I have begged him to take me out and show me how to fish that thing, and I don't have the patience for it. You know, when you in the wintertime here, there's times where you got to let it sit there for 10 or 15 seconds. Man, I'm an Italian from the Northeast. I can't sit for 6 minutes. It's not going to happen, you know. So if they're eating it when you're just, you know, moving it along, I'm okay. But it's a great technique. Don't get me wrong. And I'm only hurting myself by not having the patience to fish the thing, you know. But you know, right now when you get over those bait balls, you know, that jerk bait can catch some good ones. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, so when those fish move back shallow, you're attacking them with top waters, crankbaits,
Top water, spinner bait, square bill. I love throwing a square bill in the fall.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if you can see that, but you know, a 1.5 in that sexy shad color, or the Lucky Strike one with, it's called copper. You know, it's got like a green top on it and copper sides, white bottom. I love throwing those things in the fall. You know, you bounce them off a cover. You can actually throw them out. You know, I caught some on it today out in 50 feet of water because it's running at the right depth where the fish are. You know, so it's square bill is a very versatile bait. And, you know, you can pull them through just about anything. So, yeah, I'd probably pick a square bill over a spinner bait more often than I should.
So you get those fish will go all the way back that shallow, dirt shallow in the backs of the
Oh yeah.
pockets and stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Yep. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they'll move back, and that's a great time of year, with your side scan or your forward facing sonar to look for those objects that are on the bottom back there and 5 feet or less that aren't showing, because a lot of times those bigger fish will sit on those things because they just sit there and pick the bait off as it comes by. We've all seen those large masses of Shad, they look like big gray balls coming through the water. Well, they go over that stuff. I mean, they don't have to go far to get them, But yeah, you catch a lot of fish like that out back on those flats in the backs of the creeks. Come September, October, later in October. So it's a fun time of year coming.
Yeah, man, I love the fall.
Some of my favorite fishing's coming.
Yeah, I mean, it can be tough, but it can be very rewarding because the fish are moving. If you can find them and stay on top.
Well,
of them.
like Dave was saying a while ago, you get on the right pattern, kind of like the pro bass camp. You get on the right pattern, and you run that pattern in the fall, you can really bust them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because they'll be there. Trust me. If you catch them in a certain area in that creek, you go to the next creek, they'll be in that same area.
Right.
So it's fun. It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. I'm
tired. Just not fast enough because it was 95 today. It's going to be 95 tomorrow.
I know, I'm tired of it, man. Jeez.
Just ask the mailman.
Yeah, right. I know all about it.
That's right.
For sure.
That's right.
Well, we'll let you go, Dave. If somebody wants to book a guide trip with you, how can they get in touch with you?
They can contact me through my website, which is davemansue.com. I've got a website there, online, and you have the ability to either message me or, request a trip through the website. So it's just that simple. myname.com. And man, I'd love to hook up with some people. Like I said, it's a fun time of year that's coming. I'm sure there's going to be some good days on the water.
For sure.
And I left all your information in the description box in this video. And so anybody that's listening to this or they're going to watch the playback tomorrow, all that is down there. You can get a hold of Dave and book a trip, man. Sounds like it'd be a great time.
We'd have a lot of fun. And I do, fishing, obviously. I also do instructional tips, whether it's, trips, whether it's techniques or electronics and things like that. So, whatever they need, I can handle it for them.
Do you have snacks in the boat too?
I do. Snacks in the water.
That's important. Snacks are important.
Yeah. Peanut butter crackers, man. It's the staple of every fisherman.
Was it peanut butter crackers and Diet Mountain Dew?
No, I'm not that's a thing I try to teach the kids at the camp is Mountain Dew is not for drinking. It's for the fish.
That's
you
right.
Get the cooked fish, you pour that Mountain Dew down their throat, it stops the bleeding immediately.
That's right.
That works.
A lot of fish that way.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah. It's peanut butter crackers and water for me. So
there you go.
All right, man. It was good. Good to meet you.
Same here.
Appreciate you spending time, and good luck at Lake of the Ozarks. If I see you, I'll say hi. I'll be down there.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get hooked up. You never know.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. It'd be cool to spend the
fun.
day out there fishing. I'll give you some gas money for sure right off the bat.
After this,
yeah. I have to hold myself accountable. It's out there in the public now.
Yeah.
I think gas money for the whole week if you get.
I don't know. I don't know about that. So, all right, Dave. We'll talk to you later, man. Appreciate it.
Man, I've enjoyed it. Thanks for the opportunity, and man, good fishing, everybody.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. See you, buddy. All right, man. Good stuff. That was fun.
Awesome.
That was fun.
It was a good stream. Definitely need to have Dave back on again in the near future, and I'm betting he would be up for it.
Yeah, he's got a lot of history. We didn't dive too deep in it, and I'd like to because man's got some stories. Just hanging out with Pete Galusick and Ike and Ellie and that whole crew up in Jersey
Heck
running
yeah,
around
heck yeah.
fishing tournaments. It's
well, I think we just
pretty
scratched the surface of Dave Mansue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's got so much going on. He's got the pro bass camp. He's got guiding. He's got fishing the BFLs, fishing the Opens, the FLW Toyota Series, or the MLF Toyota Series, excuse me. So he's got a lot of irons in the fire. Man, I think we could have him on here 3 or 4 times for 3 hours apiece, and we still couldn't even touch what we need to get to.
Yeah, I'd like to get in the boat. I need to start hitting Table Rock more. It's like 5-hour drive,
I know.
but we need to start doing that. It's 5 hours is not that far.
We just need to spend a weekend down there.
Yeah, spend a
Hook up
weekend
the
down
boat
there,
and
take the
run down there.
kids, the wife down there, and just
Well, heck,
spend a day of
even
it.
if we go to that little sleeper down below it in Tanny this time of the year, we can drag our John boats down there, and we could have
Definitely
23-pound day on frogs. That doesn't sound too bad to me.
It sounds nice. Great stream, guys. It's good to see everybody on here. And Scott, get a hold of me. Send me your contact information, and I'll get those products out for you. Next week's guest is going to be Matt Steffen. I said last week that he was going to be on this week, but we got Dave on here, and Matt's going to be on next week. He's coming off a solid finish in the MLF championship tournament.
The title
Tournament. He was, I can't remember where he finished, but I want to say 9th, maybe.
top 10.
Top 10. Yeah, he was up there. He had a really, really solid tournament. So if you're not familiar with him, he has some really good tip videos on YouTube. You know, he does like a video a day. It's just interesting tidbits. Like I was watching one yesterday where he takes a vixen, you know, basically a walking topwater bait, 3-hook vixen. He took the back hook off. He ties a tag length of 15-pound fluorocarbon, and he puts a fluke on the back. And it doesn't impede the side-to-side action, but those bass that are following that topwater that won't come up and commit to it, they'll grab that fluke. And he was saying a lot of times you'll see your walking bait up here, and then you'll just see it go under just like a bobber. When that fish grabs the fluke, it pulls it under.
That's
or
awesome.
if you're walking it and you just pause it and that fluke just kind of shoots, and then you'll see the walking bait go under. So he's got all kinds of cool stuff like that. Check out his channel. He's a pretty good dude, but he's going to be on here next week, and we got some other good stuff coming.
We got a pretty good lineup coming up.
Yeah,
we were just talking about it before the stream tonight. So
yeah, a lot of good people we're just kind of getting the dates all dialed in. So it's going to be next month and a half. We're going to be throwing a lot of stuff your way.
So you guys are new to the stream, and if you're still on here, thanks a lot. But smash that thumbs up.
Yeah, hit the thumbs up. That helps. And after we're done, leave a comment in the comment section. Just say good show, whatever. Wish you would have talked more about snacks more, whatever. That really helps the channel. And subscribe too. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, that's a great way to support us. This is just free public service, man. We just love talking fishing, and we love that you guys stay on here and chat with us. So we're gonna shut it down. I got to get some sleep, man. I had a long night last night.
It's hot.
I'm not 21 anymore, so I'm feeling it a little bit. But I hope you guys get out on the water between now and next Monday. And if you do, I hope you catch some fish. We got a couple more, 3, 4, 5 more weeks. Well, mid-September, late September, October, it starts cooling down. I want to say 2 weeks, but it's going to be longer than that before the.
Well, I mean, this whole week is supposed to be in the 90s, mid-90s. So
trying to be optimistic, but realistically, we still got about a month before it.
Realistically, we need to go to Mille Lacs and spend like a little fall break up there.
Yeah, that'd be nice, man. Get up there for ice off.
Yeah,
but maybe next year. So, all right,
thanks a lot, guys.
See ya.